Well, good evening, laddies, lasses, and lassos. Welcome to the click. You smell absolutely astounding today, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Did you know that I have an incredibly strong opinion to share with you all today? Ooh, click becoming controversial. Oh, yes, indeed. You should not get yourself a little baby plushie for your own household. You should never, ever, ever do that. You see, that was funny because that was an unpopular opinion. Of course, you should get a baby plushie for your household. Oh my God. Speaking of unpopular opinions, today, you guessed it right, we're going to look into r/unpopular opinion. And the thing with this subreddit is that if you sort it by top this month or popular or something like that, you get posts that are relatively agreeable, which is ironic because it's unpopular opinions. So if you sort it in that way, you get posts like this one, for example. The fact that every major action star is on steroids but refuse to talk about it is a disgrace, which I don't necessarily think is an unpopular opinion. I think it's an interesting discussion to have. You know, impossible body standards and a lack of transparency with how you actually get there and all the troubles that come with it. Pretty reasonable discussion to have. I don't think it's an unpopular opinion. But then, of course, you can do it the spicy way and sort the whole subreddit by controversial, and oh my God, the juicy stuff that just floats to the surface. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to read r/unpopular opinion sorted by controversial. Enjoy. Mwah. Divorce shouldn't be as socially accepted as it is. Marriage these days just feels like a free trial without the commitment. Divorce in the USA alone is over 50%, which is actually insane. But how? I don't understand how someone can get up on that altar and stage or whatever and say till death do us part, or through sickness and health, and go through the good times and then bam bada boom, divorce a couple years later. The only time divorce should be acceptable? You mean acceptable by who? Is if your spouse is abusive, cheated, or became an axe murderer. You have to run through your neighborhood slicing children. Otherwise, you shouldn't divorce your partner, even though you're miserable together. You can be miserable in a relationship without someone being abusive, you know? Otherwise, you need to actually work on your marriage, talk things through, and figure it out, not just run when things get hard. While I understand people change and no one goes into a marriage thinking it's not going to work out, that's something you should know before getting married. That's the part where you grow together. Some of the reasons people get divorced nowadays are just ridiculous. I even heard one couple who were married for 10 years and nothing was wrong. All they said was they got bored. Like, why even get married? Edit. I am not saying do away with divorce. More like just stop getting married after a year of dating with the mindset, I can just get a divorce if it doesn't work out. Otherwise, just don't get married and save yourself the hassle of the fees. I mean, yeah, that's reasonable. Don't jump into a marriage prematurely, I suppose. But I think it's a good thing that you're allowed to move on from bad relationships. I think it's good for, well, probably everyone. And I also believe that's changed a bit, like, hasn't it? Like, for one, we live longer than we did, like, way back in the day when marriage became a thing, you know? So the fact that we would be twice as long in a marriage, maybe that plays a role in it. Also, you have stuff like individual liberty. You don't get married for the same reasons necessarily anymore as you used to back in ye olden days. So there are a lot of aspects that I think play into this, where it's just a fact of modern life, and I think some of it is pretty good. These days, by generation, baby boomers have the highest rate of divorce. Millennials are actually on track to have the lowest. If we keep it up while we age, you know, there's always the little bias with the fact that we're not that old yet. I am still almost in my 20s. But regardless, divorce should ideally be rare and everyone would work through their problems. But realistically, people are fallible. They get married too young, they grow apart, they cheat, they lie, they make bad financial decisions. They are neglectful, they turn out to be bad parents, all of which and more are fair reasons to leave a partner. Obviously, most things should be tried to worked on, but if it's not going to get better, divorce is the best option. And I think it's a positive that divorce is more accepted and obtainable now. That is much better than being stuck with someone who makes you miserable your whole life, as many other generations of people were forced to do, particularly women.
I actually take the opposite position. We have too many careless marriages. Thank God we have ways of getting people out. But let's start with normalizing single life until ready to make a commitment instead of railroading people for not settling down or pumping out offspring.
I feel the same way. My husband's grandparents are absolutely miserable together. It's so sad to know they will die lonely, sad, angry, and married. That is awful. You feel lonely, but you technically have someone around you have known for your entire life. Ooh, gee. Anti-homeless architecture is not evil. Okay, let's get into this one, shall we? I constantly see posts online about how anti-homelessness architecture is morally wrong and evil. However, nobody bothers to consider the negative impacts of just letting homeless people set up camp wherever they want in public. People who think anti-homelessness design is bad have never had to deal with homeless people around the building where they live. They steal stuff that's left in the hallway or reachable from mailboxes. They piss and poop in the stairway. They become aggressive to anyone who tries to get them to move. They leave behind trash, including drug-related waste. You don't want that inside or around a place where you live. I think my biggest issue with most of it is the fact that it also hurts disabled people. Those leaning benches do frick all for me because my disability results in hip pain if I walk too long. It's because it's money spent trying to hide the problem instead of solve it. Yeah, I think like both parts can be true. Like, you can be uneasy if there are people that are around your house causing trouble, especially if you have family or kids or that kind of stuff. Imagine finding needles like in the stairway if you live there with a family. I can see that being a problem. I've heard a fair share of horror stories, but I think the frustration also comes from that simple fact that it's just like spending money to design stuff that makes it worse for everyone instead of spending the money trying to fix the issue, so to say. It's like, nah. Because I also don't think it is a solution. That's the problem. It shoos people away from very specific places, but it doesn't magically make the problem go away, and I think that's where the frustration comes from. It just feels like, oh, as long as we don't see it specifically here, the problem doesn't exist. And that's when it also becomes quite non-compassionate, I suppose. Taking a shower every 2 to 3 days is perfectly respectable. I do love, like, the contrast between... between the posts. One is like, this super controversial, serious topic that is life-altering, and showering isn't that important.
Don't get me wrong, if you work in a not-so-clean environment, or if you sweat a lot, etc., yes, shower daily. But for the rest of you, I think 2 days, max 3 days is more than okay to go without a shower.
I shower like twice a day, man.
I have found out my skin and hair feels healthier with my natural oils. Of course, I wash my hands and maybe even splash water on my face at night. I don't think we were meant to shower every day, though. That's my 2 cents for today. Enjoy your evening, friends. Edit, I love how everyone is triggered. Thanks for the laugh.
I think the okayness of this one varies drastically by individual, in my opinion. Genes and diet play a large part. Oh my god, yeah, like natural body odor between individuals varies quite a decent amount. And also depends on what you do in the day. Like, I shower twice a day, but that's also because I work out or go running and that kind of stuff. Imagine just caking for 3 days when I've gone for like jogs 3 days in a row. It's just like, I have this natural like layer of protection, just caked sweat. Just like God intended. I shower daily and my husband showers every 2 to 3 days. Yet we are roughly even amounts of clean. He is way drier than I am, like his skin, hair produce far less oil. He also produces no body odor whatsoever. Some people don't. That's like super luxury to have in your partner, heck yeah. But if I were to go 3 days without a shower, it would not be okay. I would have a sheen and a stank. Ooh, it's how you establish dominance. Everyone on the bus can smell you from the other side. That's how you get to sit alone. It's super nice. Fun fact, if people have dry earwax, they tend to lack a chemical in their body that produces body odor. Ooh, that is really cool. That also explains why my earwax is very moist. Let's talk about earwax in this video, shall we? Taking it for a bit of a twist. I have no idea if this is true, though. My sample size is me, and it adds up. I shower 5 times a day because stink. You smell amazing today, by the way. But if you feel... feel free to shower as well. I see comments sometimes of people saying like, oh, Click said I smelled nice, but I've been working in a coal mine for 5 days without water. It's like, okay. Damn.
Dating is not any easier for women. Every day online you see men complaining about how dating is so extremely difficult these days, especially when it comes to online dating apps. These thoughts are usually followed by the idea that modern dating is much easier for women, how unfair that is, etc. Yet the fact is that modern dating sucks for pretty much everyone these days. I saw an accurate quote the other day that said, women gatekeep naughties and men gatekeep relationships. I've seen that quote being tossed around for like the past 10 years or so. As many male friends I have who complain about not getting matches on dating apps, I know even more female friends who complain about guys they're seeing stringing them along and not committing to anything serious, complaining about this Netflix and chill trend. Another part of it also, which I think we can get into later, but it's also incredibly skewed, the demographics, if you talk specifically about dating apps. It's like 80 to 20% or something like that, which of course means that the ladies are gonna feel completely spammed to crap and the guys are gonna struggle to get matches. Like, it's not really a good place for anyone, to be honest. honest. Even popular social media influencers and models, i.e. women who are fairly wealthy and who millions of people find attractive, can be found complaining online how men only like them for their bodies, or are only interested in naughties rather for serious relationships.
I mean, it's also a different thing, like getting 500 thirsty comments on Instagram and be like, oh yeah, girl, that's a nice booty. It's maybe not like the quartering you're looking for in like a quality relationship, it's very different.
So maybe it's easier these days for women to obtain casual naughty relationships than men, but serious long-term relationships, actual meaningful dating, difficult to achieve for pretty much everyone. I do think online dating apps and the paradox of choice are part of this problem. The groups that really has the easiest time when it comes to dating are rich and or super attractive men, because they can gatekeep both naughties and relationships. But to be honest, rich and or super attractive men have historically always had the easiest time in life.
Dating is like being dehydrated. Women are in a swamp and men are in a desert. That quote kind of makes sense in a funny way. I remember when I was on dating apps many years ago when I was still in uni, and I was talking to this female friend of mine who was also on dating apps back then. And I remember our experiences were so vastly different. I remember feeling when I was on dating apps like I always had to kind of drop my standards to get anywhere with matches or conversations. Very much the feeling that, it's an 80-20% distribution and, the effects that actually has, which eventually made me give up on dating apps because it felt like a huge time sink and the algorithm is just trying to suck you in. It's kind of a time waster. She had the exact opposite. She said that every time she swiped right on someone, it was basically a match because all the dudes were just sitting and swiping right on everything. And every time she opened the app, she had like 50 new messages. And it just became like a spam fest. It's just like having a spam folder in your mail inbox. It's not fun, casual dating anymore. It's just kind of a hassle and a bit overwhelming. So I suppose the whole thing turns into like quality versus quantity kind of thing. For guys on dating apps, the problem is the quantity, that it's so skewed. And for girls, it's the quality. And the same thing on like Instagram, for example. The argument that 2 million people find this person on Instagram attractive is like, sure, but what is exactly 500 half creepy comments about someone's butt gonna do for like your, sustainable, long-term, meaningful relationships? Probably not much. Conclusion, we should all just go back to living in the woods. This is all just, I don't know, an algorithmic waste of time. God, that's a positive twist on it, isn't it? Date pine cones. Gym clothing shouldn't be revealing. I personally believe people shouldn't be wearing revealing clothing to the point where going somewhere, like the grocery store, is awkward. Indeed, people should just be naked in the gym. Vote for naked at the gym party today. I am tired of these weird shrug tops that have no practicality to them and look dumb, or wearing brightly colored shorts scrunched so far up a person's butt that their butthole is basically swallowing their shorts. God, that's a sentence I didn't expect to read today. Okay. Or stringer tanks with ginormous holes on the side. Or 3-inch in-arm shorts where a person's balls are out and about. The gym isn't your house or the beach. Wear appropriate clothing. Edit. I'm referring to extreme cases of revealing gym attire. P.S. People who go commando to the gym needs to be arrested. I think people forget the sub is called Unpopular Opinions. Why try to fight someone's opinion that they already know is an unpopular one? The perfect solution? Just no clothes at the gym at all. Isn't that beautiful? Oh yes, indeed. Sometimes when I read things on subreddits like this, or like opinions online in general, I sometimes find myself in a category where I just feel like I don't really have a strong enough opinion to like bother arguing this. I just think it's kind of funny to read the reactions to it. Most gamers are suffering from an addiction but refuse to admit it. As title, it's your hobby. How do you decompress? Your escape? Yeah, okay, bud. I don't spend all day thinking about knitting and then have to knit for 4 hours or I get angry. Y'all need help. I mean, it is definitely addicting to an extent, yeah. A lot of things in life are, but that doesn't mean it's always a problem. Like, I enjoy a beer on a Friday with people, doesn't mean I'm addicted to it, I can go without it as well. If you spend all day thinking about anything, then feel like you have to do it for 4 hours, otherwise you become angry, then it's a problem. None of that is exclusive to gaming. You can enjoy gaming, even play for hours every day without it being a problem. You can enjoy jogging, feel like you have to run 10 miles a day, or else you become hostile and take it out on everyone around you, and it's a problem. The issue isn't the hobby. The issue is the level of compulsion and the reaction that the person has if they are deprived of it. Hard agree, but I will say a lot of live service game or gacha games or games in general are designed to hit the same parts of the brain that gambling does. So while it can boil down to the person, some games are very predatory. That is actually a really good point, and nowadays it's even gone so far that some companies, like game companies that design mobile games or microtransaction-based stuff, they even have psychologists on their teams to make sure that it turns as addictive and enticing as possible. They even have it so it like ramps up in the beginning. So if you ever played a mobile game, you'll notice like in the beginning, you get a lot of dopamine, a lot of rewards really fast. You know, it's like, oh my god, you level up so fast, everything is happening, it's so fun, oh my god, I want to achieve more of this. And then, you know, it starts slowing down a little bit, and then you get an offer, but it's like, oh, it's 50 times the offers, you only pay like 10 cents to get like a bunch of good items. Why wouldn't you do that? It's nothing. 10 cents? God, you spend more than that on chewing gum. It's okay. But then you have already broken like the mental barrier that tells you it's okay to spend money on a game that you're already supposed to have, right? And then it just snowballs from there, and it becomes an addiction because you're still chasing that high and progression that you had in the beginning of the game. There are so many aspects to this kind of stuff that is solely designed for being predatory or being addiction or being gambling. It's kind of bad. I'm just sad that's where gaming is going. Like, having some elements of randomness in games, it's fine, you know, when you go run around in Skyrim and you loot stuff or you kill enemies and sometimes they drop things that are slightly random. That's perfectly fine, that's not the same thing. But when it's endorsing spending real life money, and when the focus of the game is just cash grabbing as much of that as possible instead of actually just making a good game for people to buy, then the industry is heading in a very worrying direction, and it has been for like the last 10 years. Being fundamentally anti-conspiracy theory does make you a sheep. Edit 2, better, faster way to put it, conspiracy theories are inherently lacking in proof, otherwise they would be bad conspirators. The original post below was worded to be controversial, but people are straight up taking it to mean you can believe whatever you want with no evidence, which is not my point. Okay, let's read the original post, shall we? I am not talking about the whack conspiracy theories where people are one step away from just making poo up. I see a lot of that online though, where it's like, did you know the eyeball is the same shape as the sun? Therefore, looking straight into the sun will make everything ball-shaped in your body better, including your balls. What?
Walnuts look like lungs, so if you eat them, it's good for lungs.
It's okay to be selective about what you believe. I am talking about a significant portion of Redditors who label any theory without 100% irrefutable evidence as a conspiracy theory, because it disagrees with the popular scientific opinion. And of course, conspiracy theory equals crazy right-wing nutjob. There seems to be this growing mindset that when there is a scientific consensus on something, that makes it the correct opinion. Probably a result of growing up with Google. For one, this completely undermines the point of science, which is to challenge all preconceived notions. I mean, to some extent, yes, but sometimes it turns really ridiculous. It's like when people try to disprove the entirety of evolution because it technically has the name theory in the name of it, which in scientific context, the theory is quite a heavy label, you know, you can't just toss it on anything. And then try to disprove it with like a Facebook mom meme. It's like, you know, it gets to ridiculous points quite often, or like the flat earth thing. When I see people trying to disprove like hundreds of years of science and every physical model we have with like pouring water on a basketball and being like, it comes off, so round things can't have water on them. You know, ignoring the fact that, you know, literally the earth is below us pulling the water down from the basketball, but it's not like an isolated experiment. But you know, you get the gist. It gets a little bit silly. If there is zero reputable evidence for a claim, that does not immediately mean it's false. It often means there simply was never a profit incentive to run a large-scale study on it, or it's just inherently difficult to prove. And then we get into some like controversial examples. Okay, let's see. The best rule of thumb for gauging a conspiracy theory's likelihood of having a chance of being true is by asking the question, how many people has to be in on the secret for the conspiracy to work? As soon as that number becomes large, the conspiracy theory is in all likelihood bunk. People are bad at keeping secrets, and large groups are very difficult to organize with any precision, never mind secretly with precision. Even arguably the most secretive major government project in human history, the Manhattan Project, had thousands of leaks, and that's in the time without the internet. We're living in a time where classified documents get uploaded to a video game for clout. Yeah, yeah, that was funny. Frequently, large-scale conspiracies are all but impossible. I think another aspect to consider as well, apart from just the statistics and how likely it will be to like maintain the lie, is just the motivating factors behind it. Is there actually a motivator for this conspiracy to be true? Would anyone actually gain from keeping this lie up, for example? Take something like Flat Earth, for example. Who would actually gain anything from Flat Earth, like being a cover-up and that kind of stuff? Like NASA? Getting a little budget. NASA's budget is like nothing compared to like the grand scheme of economies, or like just the tobacco industry or anything. So like meh, it's a very, very complicated thing to keep up, and like the size of that conspiracy would be insane compared to the small budget that NASA gets. Like it wouldn't be profitable, so nah. But then of course there are conspiracies that have more motivation behind it. That's like, yeah, this seems quite convenient. That could be true to some extent. Then of course the level, if it's just like pushing the right people at the right time and like influencing it versus planning and orchestrating the whole thing in detail, who knows? But there is definitely some difference there, how many people are involved and like the actual motivators behind it. So that's something to consider, I suppose, before just buying conspiracy theories with or without evidence. Cringe is a dumb word and it's mostly used to bully people, especially neurodiverse people. I mean, sometimes, I suppose, but I don't think it's the word itself that is the problem. Outside of a few cases, the majority of the time I see the word cringe. It's not cringe and just someone doing something that isn't neurotypical and oftentimes used to bully people. The word cringe isn't stupid. Cringe culture is stupid. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, the word cringe is perfectly fine. I use it all the time. I sometimes refer to myself as a professional little cringe lord, but it's the way people use it. I've seen it very often be used as a justification to just bully people. Oh, here's a cringe subreddit. I'll upload a picture of anyone I don't like to the subreddit and call them cringe. Like then you kind of lost touch with what this very simplistic word is supposed to be. A culture of people who literally go out of their way to look for things they would consider cringe and bully and mock the things they view as cringe. Literally anything can be viewed as cringe, even if that thing isn't hurting or affecting anybody. Even something as simple as doing a stupid dance to a stupid song on TikTok and having fun while doing it is often considered cringe by these people. I believe that these people only cringe at folks who are simply enjoying themselves online because they themselves have joy or happiness in their lives, probably because they themselves doesn't have happiness in their lives. I think it's more of an issue in turning very simplistic things into like a weapon of bullying, for example. Like, oh, this subreddit is cringe, I'm gonna post anyone that I dislike or just wanna crap on the subreddit and justify it by calling it cringe. It's, a lot of things are cringe. A lot of my content is fairly labeled as cringe, I would confidently say, but that doesn't justify bad behavior. There are a lot of things that aren't inherently bad that can still be used in insulting ways or ways to justify bullying. And I think a lot of things online land in that sort of category, where it's not inherently bad. There's nothing in the word cringe that is particularly offensive or derogatory or anything like that. But then you have like subcultures and offshoots that turn it into something bad and use it as a justifying for bullying or things like that. So I think it's more about how it's used rather than the word itself in certain contexts. 18 to 19-year-olds dating people 10 to 20 years older is weird. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion, but it's also like a weird way of putting it. It requires two people to date. Why aren't you saying like, it's weird when a 40-year-old picks up an 18-year-old? You know, that's... I think that would be the normal way of formulating this sentence, right? I know it's legal, but in my eyes, they're still considered teenagers. I mean, yeah, it's literally in the name, 18, 19. Since some of them just graduated high school and are dating people in different stages of their life. And also to add, what do they have in common to be dating in the first place? I mean, I don't think this opinion is unpopular, to be honest. Edit, I'm only talking about 18, 19 still in or fresh out of high school. Any ages above that, I don't care. Also to add the fact that in some countries, people that age are more/less mature, but in general, I still think it's weird. I don't think this is an unpopular opinion. Like, an 18-year-old dating a 40-year-old, I think most people see as kind of odd. I don't think it's an unpopular opinion. I think most people do date their age. I think average differences was close to 3 years. Not sure. Yeah, it's something like that. The average difference in age in relationship is something like 3 years.
Seafood is absolutely disgusting, overhyped, and overall disgrace to the term food. I've had many types of seafood so far. Lobster, shrimp, crab, crayfish, lobsters, multiple kinds of fish, oysters, just vile. Not to mention crustaceans, for example. It's like you're having a huge insect carcass on your plate. Like, sure, a chicken can be served as the whole thing, but when I see a crab on the platter, I just feel like I'm looking at a huge dead underwater spider about to be eaten. Oh yes, indeed, watch that little spider. The foods listed above, I've had them in expensive, cheap, and mid restaurants, and honestly, they are nasty, regardless of the fact they were seasoned, sauced, whatever. I've always seen the hype about seafood on TikTok and other social media, and not gonna lie, they look good, but the texture, the taste, and the overall experience of eating them is just disgusting to me. And oysters. God, I tried it at an expensive, highly rated restaurant and I've only had to try one. And I ran to the restroom gagging and nearly throwing it up in my hands. The taste was horrible. The texture was traumatizing. As far as I can describe it, it's like slurping a big ball of fleshy snot out of a fishy-ass shell. Edit, I just want to mention the fact that some of you are being negative and in a way uncivil. I am open to reading your opinions about seafood in this post in general, but don't waste your time writing stuff like, oh, his post history 5-year-old chicken nuggets. Okay. Holy poo, I just woke up. Thank you guys for your comments, upvotes, upvotes, and downvotes. Sorry if I can't reply to everyone. I am trying. I love discussions like this. It's so funny, because it's things that, like, don't really affect anyone. You know, tasting food, that kind of thing. And people just go ham at it. It's so funny to see controversial discussions about things that don't actually matter. But to be fair though, people do actually eat insects, so that's definitely a thing. And if I talk about seafood from, like, my own opinion, it comes in so many, like, shapes, sizes, flavors, and, like, seasoning and everything. There's a very big difference between, like, slurping a raw oyster versus, like, having a nice salmon fillet on the grill. You know, it's incredibly different dishes. So while, yes, I'm personally not a big fan of, for example, oysters, I kind of agree with that. I think it's a bit, like, slimy and meh. I do really enjoy myself a nice fish, for example. That's really nice. I can also enjoy a nice lobster or maybe shrimp if it's in the right dish, so to say. Not always, but sometimes.
This is something seafood would say. It's a conspiracy. You see, seafood would take the Reddit to depopularize seafood. It was the lobsters all along.
95% of people who say they like dad bods are just out of touch. That's okay. Let's get into this, shall we? Every single girl online, because I've only ever seen this online, personally, who I've ever seen say they like dad bods followed up with some ridiculous understanding of how fitness works, or weird assumptions about people who keep fit. Okay? I'm not even talking about ripped, just not pudgy. Like they automatically associate being at a certain level of fitness to mean you necessarily neglect other aspects of your life. I.e., he can't give me the level of attention I would like, which is so wrong I can't even describe how wrong it is. Or they say something even more absurd, like muscle is too hard to cuddle against, and so on. I don't think I've ever seen that kind of stuff. Honestly, that's pretty alien. This seems like a very specific personal experience to kind of like project it into a more general opinion. In short, virtually everyone I have ever seen claim they like dad bods seem to like that they are super out of touch in regards to what it actually takes to be fit. I'm not saying they don't like dad bods, they do, but they like dad bods because in their minds being in shape equates to spending so much time and effort in the gym, which neglects your relationship and responsibilities, which is wrong, of course. What?
I can't stand those darn dad bod guys getting all the chicks. Here I am with my massive bicep and six-pack abs, and women find it revolting. It's not fair, damn it.
This reminds me though of that meme where it's like what guys going to the gym expect, and it's like and it's like all the ladies around it. What actually happens, and it's a bunch of other dudes. It's like, oh hell yeah, bro, nice abs. That's kind of, yeah, I like that meme. It's very funny.
You don't understand. I simply can't find a girlfriend because I'm too hot and muscular.
You sound like someone who is in shape. That's awesome. You should be proud of your hard work, but is very insecure. I used to be in great shape. Then the pandemic hit and I got a dad bod. And now I am just fat. So I've run the whole spectrum. And what I've noticed now is that I'm on this side is a whole lot of people like you who just hate people who aren't in great shape. And it consumes a lot of your mental energy. Bro, focus on you. You're doing great. Absolutely none of the dad bod alliance are gonna be stealing your girl. They're too busy at Olive Garden taking full advantage of endless breadsticks. Hell yeah. Yeah, it sounds more like it's an attitude thing. Like if you spend a lot of time doing something you're passionate about, for example, going to the gym or working a sport, and then you have made up in your mind that everyone is like assuming really bad things about you. Like, oh, look at him doing his favorite sport. He must be neglecting the rest of his life, not being there for his partner, not taking care of his household or whatever. If that's the kind of mental picture you paint, I think it's more about the vibe you give out rather than like specifically gym stuff. Your commitment to staying in shape is admirable and the way everyone should strive to be. But this attitude you take is like if I, 6'6", started pooping on girls who like short guys. It sounds pretty pathetic. Yeah, and if they truly like that, then it's like a different preference. Like then it's just like, oh, if someone likes blonde guys, then it's like, okay. Then it's not really my demographic anyway. It's okay.
Queen is a horrible band. Queen isn't just overrated, it's just bad music and plain sucks. Wailing and yelling, random stuff isn't good music.
Oh, you're talking about Bohemian Rhapsody?
Just repeating a bunch of stuff with songs on it and isn't good music. Freddie's voice is incredibly pompous and annoying, and I get a strange sense of nausea when I hear songs like Radio Gaga on the radio. All Queen songs sounds like if you forced an 11-year-old kid to write them. I feel like people are in mass hypnosis and think songs like We Are the Champions and Bicycle Race are songs that needed some kind of musical genius to create them.
I have been seeing stuff in the sub for a long time, and I always think that the posts here are very popular and people post for validation. This is legit the most unpopular opinion I've seen here. Have an upvote.
Well, you see, that's how it's supposed to work. Like, you upvote the unpopular opinions. Like, it's a place to discuss controversial opinions. That's the fun part.
Couples in serious relationships should have absolutely no issue with checking each other's phone whatsoever.
Hey, babe, you don't mind watching you poo really closely, right? You have nothing to hide. Maybe I just want to poo in peace, you know?
If you love your partner, you would want them to feel secure. I mean, sure, any suspicion should be allayed as soon as possible, but I think you can be confident in a relationship without being weirdly invasive with privacy. If they will feel better by snooping on your phone, I don't see a problem with that. Small doses of suspicion is healthy, normal in a relationship.
What?
Usually conversations are also two ways though. If I'm having for example a personal private conversation with one of my friends, that doesn't mean the friend has consented to me just sharing that conversation with other people, it might be about personal stuff. So I don't know, this extends further than just the relationship as well. Suspicion isn't black and white, there is a gradual scale. The sooner you address it, the healthier for the relationship. If your partner's behaving irrationally paranoid, then there are other issues that need to be addressed, and them wanting to check your phone is only a symptom of a larger problem. Yeah, I don't think it's a thing that should be endorsed. It's like, hey, I'm really paranoid and insecure and all this kind of stuff. Let's just indulge that instead of trying to healthily deal with it. I don't think that's the solution, because if you give them the phone thing and look through and all the kind of consent stuff about the other people you're talking to, and that's just out the window, and you let them do it, the paranoia isn't just going to magically stop from that one specific thing. It just gets, fixed for now, for today. It's a small band-aid. The problem is still going to be there, and then it's going to be the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. This is not healthy. Irrational behavior is nuanced, and only you can decide when they've crossed that line. Blind trust has probably led to many failed relationships that could have otherwise led to a happy one. People behave better with a little bit of checks and balances. It's human nature. Edit. Gotta love all the self-proclaimed mature and non-toxic people responding with personal insults.
Okay, yeah, that's probably not the way to go about it either. Welcome to Unpopular Opinion. Woo!
Marriage does not erase individual privacy. My friends and family did not consent for the conversation with me to be shared.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that's also true.
A correct invasion of privacy is not the standard list for marriage vows. Small doses of suspicion is healthy in a relationship.
No, frick, it's not. Don't date someone you don't trust.
If you really love me, you'll let me violate your privacy to indulge my insecurities.
It's like a red flag wrapped in 1,000 other increasingly red flags. There are things in life that land in a category where you feel like there is an easy, very tangible fix right now, but the problem is something wider or deeper, such as this. If you don't feel safe in your relationship, just looking through someone's phone once isn't magically gonna remove all the suspicions. What about the time they go on that business trip, or the other accounts they have on platforms, or what about Discord, or what about this or that? There's so many things that will just keep coming. The list never stops. So I think the paranoia is probably a sign of a bigger issue. It's not specifically about the phone.
People say frick too much. Frick this opinion. So many people can't seem to get through a sentence without throwing this unnecessary profanity. It's just way too much and just make people seem immature and rude, especially when they're grown adults. You can express things like shock without using frick. Just say, wow. That's not the same punch. Frick is a powerful expression. I love it. Can you imagine there's a car crash in front and you're like, wow, that's crazy. No, it doesn't have the same punch. A frick. It's much better. And you don't need to use it for emphasis all the time with sentences. Just fricking do it. There's no need for frick to be used as much as it is. It's just unnecessary. Make you look impolite. To be clear, I don't mean less intelligent when I say immature. Younger high school students will say frick constantly. So when I see grown adults who still do that, I think it's kind of childish. I don't think they're stupid because of this, though. I mean, some parts it's don't be unnecessarily rude or that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's maturity, and sometimes I think it's just professional. If you're in an office context, saying frick in company emails probably isn't the way to go about it. I had a friend who used frick in every sentence. In some form, it was almost like a tonal language with different inflections. That's the beauty of frick. It's so versatile.
I agree. It's very versatile and beautiful, but I guess there's a time and a place, like with a lot of things. When I stop saying frick, that's when you know things are getting serious.
Oh, that's when you know things are getting fricked up.
Watching streamers play a game you own is the dumbest-ish ever. Obviously, this is an unpopular opinion because I know it's popular to watch this crap. I mean, I don't have to read this entire thing. I can just make the very simple point that, people watch, for example, football or sports, even though you're probably perfectly capable to go and kick a ball yourself. It's about more than that. It's about watching someone else do it, who might be better, or might do it in a different way. It's about the community around it, it's about the cheering, it's about the interaction, and a lot of the times, especially when it comes to sandbox games, I've noticed with streamers and, for example, YouTubers, is that they play it so vastly different. Watching one person play, for example, Minecraft is gonna be like a completely different experience than watching someone else play Minecraft, or do it yourself, or depending on which friends you play it with. So, no, I don't quite agree, and some of it is just entertainment and personality. Like watching a witty, funny person play a video game is really entertaining.
Spicy food is stupid. Pain isn't a flavor.
Tell that to the masochists in the audience.
I don't understand why people load their food with spicy stuff. I have tried on many occasions to include it in my cooking and takeout orders, but it's just unpleasant. It doesn't add anything to the meal. It just makes your mouth and insides hurt and makes you not want to eat the food. I have a bottle of sriracha sauce that's half empty. I'm just gonna have it thrown away. I tried for over a year how to include it in so many different things, and none of it was better for having it in.
Pain isn't a flavor.
Well, people also have different resistance to spice. One thing I've heard people that really enjoy spicy food have said is that once you get across the barrier and you can handle the heat better, the flavors that come along with it are very, very nice and very interesting. So it's just a matter of getting over it. I think the same thing goes with a lot of seasoning, like salt, for example. The right amount of salt, too much salt, it's basically inedible. But in this instance, it also plays into how used you are to spicy food and what kind of resistance you have to it, and that can vary a lot between people.
Having pictures taken of yourself is egocentric. There are times where you obviously need your pictures taken, such as medical records, licenses, and mugshots. But I've always thought of taking your own picture or having someone take a picture of you show that you are full of yourself. What, like for your family albums and stuff? Look at this disgusting family album. Oh, they're all narcissists. Baby pictures? Pfft, disgusting. I've been told my dating profile sucks because I don't have a lot of variety in my pictures. That's where this went. That's where this went. Do you have that in the bio as well, on Tinder? Anyone who has pictures in their Tinder profile is a narcissist.
Yeah, that doesn't scream like guilt-tripping catfish at all.
But I also don't have my picture taken all the friggin' time because I don't need external validation.
I mean, okay, I can agree to some extent that social media has skewed our search for validation to an extreme extent, but we also are social creatures, so it's about the balance, I suppose.
A lesson I was taught recently when I was admitted into residential treatment. I've been told my dating profile sucks. Having good pictures of yourself is literally step one of online dating, and you won't even do that. Yeah, in this instance, it is like a necessity, though. Like of course,
sure, in some instances, I can agree that sometimes people take an excessive amount of pictures, but also, does it really matter? I think this also lands in that kind of category where it's maybe social media endorses certain things, I don't know, but I'm also not sure if I have a strong enough opinion about it to really care. Definitely an unpopular opinion. Most people take pictures to capture memories of their good times and vacations. But hey, solid unpopular opinion. You get my vote.
Indeed. Vote it up. It's truly unpopular.
Pictures are my favorite souvenir. It's a memory of times gone by, and therefore kids, even now with young kids, it's my wife and I taking photos. I don't want to miss an opportunity to capture a time in my life just because I'm the only one who would be in it. Yeah, and having people in the pictures actually give it a bit of value. I have noticed that when I look back through albums and stuff of pictures, for example, if I have a picture of myself or of the family and that kind of stuff, and it's the scenery or where I went to, it's kind of magical because you can also see how long ago it was. You can also see that, oh my god, we were such little poo-poos back then, and here is where we were. It's kind of cool. Only having a picture of the place you were at with no context or the people you were with takes a lot of soul out of it. It's nice to use it as a phone background or whatever, or for a scenery, but having the people you were there with in the picture of wherever you visited does give it a soul. It really does. Being tall matters more than looks. When it comes to dating women, being tall attracts more women than good looks. It's so much easier for an ugly or average-looking tall guy, above 6 feet, to attract women when compared to a handsome short guy, below 5'8". The only two things that beat it is getting girls is money and status. However, if you don't have status or money, being tall alone can still get you laid. I mean, you're arguing different things here. You're talking about just getting laid as in one-night stands, and you're also talking to like more serious dating. If I extend this to like my own social experience in life and like the people around me and that kind of thing, this doesn't correlate at all. Like the people who were the most, how should I put this, successful in promiscuity were not the tallest boys among my friends, if I put it that way. I mean, overall, you know, if you look at beauty standards or something like, yeah, sure, but it's so much individual variation. One thing that always rubs me the wrong way about these sort of conclusions is that it takes something that probably has a positive correlation, but makes it the only factor. Right? There's a huge difference between an overall average with one single variable versus how many variables actually make up you as an individual. So for example, if you plot like tallness in men versus how likely you are to get approached in a pub, for example, like, yeah, there's probably a positive correlation. I wouldn't be surprised. But if you look at you as a person, that is not the only variable. There's a massive difference between looking at the correlation between one variable in an average sample versus pretending it's the only variable that matters on an individual level. Those are very distinct differences, but they're very easily conflated in these kind of arguments, and that's where I think it kind of goes astray.
Young people not knowing basic repair maintenance skills is as embarrassing as boomers' technological ignorance. My generation, millennial, okay, yeah, maybe millennials are getting that old now, I'm feeling it, man, and younger, have a serious drop-off in functional knowledge and repair skills for many items. The option has become to simply buy something new to replace a broken item rather than even attempting to repair. To be fair, I think it's a couple of factors. I mean, one, I think is also just background. If you grow up on the countryside, for example, you will know more of these things. Number two, not that many in the millennial generation can afford proper, like, full-scale houses. Most people I know, at least my age, live in apartments, which means, of course, less handyman work. And three, a lot of the market nowadays is, like, kind of stuff breaks and you just replace it. I, for example, had a ceiling light, the one up here, break a little while ago. And I, of course, took it down, like, was picking around a bit. I located what was broken. And it turns out that the spare part is almost as expensive as an entirely new lamp. And the new lamp would also be more energy efficient, so it would, like, save on itself over time. So then you're sitting there and be like, there's no point in repairing this whatsoever. And that's kind of where the market has gone to. There isn't an incentive for repairing things anymore. It seems most of my contemporaries struggle to even attempt to troubleshoot an issue or even use simple tools. But let's just show previous generations didn't teach us. Get the frick out of here with that willingly ignorant attitude. We have more free access to how-to than literally any humans ever. Go to YouTube, search a repair or basic skill, and you'll be readily taught with step-by-step instructions with very clear detail. I mean, mixed points. I think learning from a tutorial and like actual hands-on experience are different, but yes, you are right in that information is very accessible in many ways. I also grew up on a farm. It's not a generational thing, it's a background thing. When I started college, I would make money by fixing things for the students from wealthier families who had never needed to repair anything, or the city kids who grew up in maintained apartment buildings. There's also less you can repair on your own nowadays. You gave no examples, but let's look at cars. Back in the 90s, if something went wrong on your car, you could just swap out parts or put in a new house, fuse, whatever. Now there's a computer work to be done, and everything is designed to force you to take the vehicle to licensed service centers. You need specialized tools. The more tech involved, the less likely a layman will be able to fix it. Yeah, like imagine the difference. I remember helping an older relative at some point fixing like an alarm clock at some point. And it was just, picked it apart, you realized something was a little bit loose, you reattached it with a little bit of tin and a little bit of tape, and bada bing, bada boom, it was fixed. Imagine trying to fix a smartphone. Like screwing it apart. And like melting a bit of tin on top of like a loose cable. It's not comparable. At some point, stuff gets complex to the point where you can't really do it unless you have super duper specialized tools. So, I think it's a bit of everything. Multivariable opinion, if I put it that way. Oh, yes, indeed. Well, laddies, lasses, and lassos, I do hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Leave your own unpopular opinions below in the comments. I would love to read them, or what you agreed or disagreed with in this video, you beautiful bean. Remember to pick up the plushies. That is indeed the popular opinion that you should definitely get before they're gone forever, and you regret it for the rest of your mortal days. I will see you in the very next video. Take care. Mwah.